This past weekend, I drove from where I live in Los Angeles down to San Diego to hang out with some friends. It was about a 3-hour drive, and I had a great time on the drive. I brought snacks, I prayed, I called family, I called friends, I listened to some Rascal Flatts, and sang along at the top of my lungs. It was a great time. Part of what made the drive so great was that I was driving near the ocean. As I was driving, the ocean was on my right side, and I could catch glimpses of it by looking out of my passenger side window. And the whole time as I was driving, the sun was out and it was shining on the ocean, and it was just gorgeous. It was so beautiful. And I couldn't stop looking at it. I couldn't stop looking at the ocean. I mean, obviously I did. I didn't get in a car accident. I didn't drive off a cliff. But whenever I had the opportunity, my eyes were always drawn to the ocean, and I looked at it as often as I could. I was so drawn to the beauty of it. And I wasn't the only one. I drove through half a dozen small towns on the coast, literally right by the water. Whole towns, whole communities were built facing the ocean. Every house, every development, they were constructed to get the best views of the ocean. On either side of the road, on the right side, close down by the water, down by the surf, they were twisted, they were angled to get the best views. And even up on the hills, up on the cliffs, the houses were built on stilts. They were twisted, they were turned so they could get the best and consistent views of the ocean. Every part of these towns was built to behold the beauty of the ocean. And as I drove through these little towns, I meditated on this fact. And I thought about how I want every part of my own life to be built to behold the beauty of God. I want every part of my life to be built to behold the beauty of God. I want to orient my whole being towards God. I want my life, every part of it, to be facing God. I don't want to compartmentalize my life. I've tried to do that. It doesn't work. I can't say, okay, God, here's my faith life, and that belongs to you. But it's only a small percentage of me, and everything else belongs to me and my own pleasures and my own comforts. My faith life faces you, but everything else faces me. Or faces something else, some other kind of power or pleasure or comfort, or another person or another relationship. No. It don't work like that. Every part of our being must face God, so I can behold His beauty, get as close to it as possible. Then I can become more like it, become more like Him. I want every part of my life to be built to behold the beauty of God. That means my relationships must be built to face the glory of God. My relationships must have foundations, not on the unstable sands of utility or convenience or common interests, but they must be built on the solid rock of truth, the unshakable foundation of God. All of my relationships, familiar relationships, platonic relationships, romantic relationships, even basic acquaintances like my next door neighbors or my waitress. I must make every effort so that all of my relationships and every part of my social life is facing God. My health and my fitness must be built to behold the beauty of God. Taking care of myself can't be about my own ego. It must be about glorifying God and taking care of the gift of my body that He gave me. Improving my health and my fitness can't draw me away from God. It must lead me closer to Him. My recreation, my hobbies, my interests, my entertainment, my media must also be built to behold the beauty of God. I have to be super honest with myself. Is how I spend my free time leading me closer to God? Directly or indirectly? It's not like every free moment I have to be listening to praise and worship or reading a document by Pope Francis. Like, if I choose to do that, great. But everything that's true, good, and beautiful belongs to God and leads us past to God. So if I participate in truth, beauty, and goodness, no matter its forms, it can still lead me to God in one way or another. But if my recreation isn't doing that, if how I spend my time isn't leading me directly or indirectly to God, I have to change that. I have to shift that. I have to rework that so that it's facing God. Is my recreation recreating me to be something else? Is my recreation changing me to be someone else, someone other than who God is calling me to be? This is hard. This is a process. This is a journey to examine every aspect of our lives and to build our lives anew to be facing God. The people who had those homes in those little towns in between Los Angeles and San Diego, people who live in those towns and live in those houses, they had to make sacrifices to be that close to the beauty of the ocean. I'm sure it took time for those houses to be built. I'm sure it was expensive. They might have had to change jobs. They might have had to move away from their hometown or change locations away from family and friends who lived away from the ocean. But ultimately, What was most important for those people who lived in those tiny towns? What was most important to them was being as close as possible to the beauty of the ocean, to bask in its beauty, to be drawn closer to it. Not just once a week, not just once a year on vacation, but every single day, to have their daily lives facing the beauty of the ocean. I want to be like that. Yeah, it takes a lot of effort to do this. Yeah, it takes a lot of effort to rebuild your life, to reorient your life, but the good news is God helps us. God doesn't call us to something He doesn't equip us for. If God is calling us closer to Him, He's going to give us the tools and graces and the means necessary to do that. I want every part of my life to be built to behold the beauty of God.